Hello and welcome to this session. In this session, we will deep dive into detection and investigation services in AWS. My name is Luai Shad, and I'm a specialist security architect with AWS based in Dubai. As organizations utilize more and more of AWS services, our job as security professionals is to help application and development teams to be able to build and iterate faster on our platform while keeping that platform secure. In this session, we will focus on some of these detection services to be able to surface these findings and investigate them, to be able to add them as part of your security arsenal as a security professional. Following the NIST framework, identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover, our AWS security services are built to help you deal with security incidents, follow best practices, and automate responses. Today, we will focus on some of the detection and investigation services in AWS, mainly Amazon GuardDuty, AWS Security Hub, and Amazon Detective. Let's have a look at Amazon GuardDuty. Amazon GuardDuty is a threat detection service that continuously monitors for malicious activity and unauthorized behavior to protect your AWS accounts and workloads. Our threat detection works on two methods: threat intelligence and machine learning. We have simplified the process by enabling a one-click activation of the service, where we continuously monitor your AWS accounts and resources. We do global coverage across all AWS regions with regional results. We detect for known threats, intel-based threats, and we also detect unknown threats, unusual behavior, unusual activity that's happening across your AWS environment, which gives you that enterprise-wide consolidation and management of your security events. So how does Amazon GuardDuty work? Amazon GuardDuty looks into three sources of data: VPC flow logs, DNS logs, and CloudTrail events. We cover management events and S3 events as well. We then run our machine learning model to detect findings like Bitcoin, command and control activity. Coupling that with our anomaly detection model to detect unusual behavior, we are able to surface intelligent finding based on severity. We define the severities in high, medium, and low, but we also give you the ability to push these events into different services to achieve specific things. You can push it into Amazon Detective to investigate that security finding and try to find a root cause. You can push it into AWS Security Hub, which we will cover now, that gives you the ability to aggregate your security findings and take actions on a higher level. Push it to an Amazon S3 bucket from an auditing and a logging perspective, or finally pushing into CloudWatch events to automatically remediate, push that into partner solutions, or send it to a SIEM as an example. GuardDuty works on detecting known threats using threat intelligence. We leverage things like AWS Security Intel, our partner network, and some of the security findings that they are gathering, or also customer-specific or customer-provided threat models by running our machine learning models on top of your AWS environment. This enables GuardDuty to identify things like known malware, anonymized proxies, cryptocurrency mining, and sites that contain malware that can affect your AWS resources. We also have the ability to detect unknown threats. And what we mean by unknown threats is unusual behavior, new geolocation access into your AWS environment, different behavior from how users normally log in and the actions that they perform. It gives us the ability to identify these signal patterns, profile your normal behavior, and look for deviations. And we do this using machine learning classifiers. And the more that GuardDuty is running across your environment, the better the results are. Now that we've covered what Amazon GuardDuty is, let's have a look at AWS Security Hub and the value it brings to you as an organization. AWS Security Hub gives you a comprehensive view of your high-priority security alerts and security posture across your AWS accounts. With Security Hub, you have a single pane of glass that aggregates, organizes, and prioritizes your security alerts on findings from multiple AWS services. Services such as Amazon GuardDuty that we just covered, Amazon Inspector, Amazon Macie, IAM Analyzer, AWS Firewall Manager, and a bunch of AWS partner solutions, including things like Splunk, Armor, Checkpoint, and a few other integrations. AWS Security Hub also provides additional functionality. There are dashboards that give you that immediate visibility in terms of your security posture and some of the top security findings that we found across your AWS environment. We also have the ability to build in insights. Some of the examples of the insights is how many instances that I have that are missing patches, or what are some of the S3 buckets that have some stored credentials in them, or S3 buckets that are publicly accessible, or top AMIs based on findings. You also have the ability to customize these insights and build your own insights. Additionally, AWS Security Hub provides you security standards, which you can enable across your AWS accounts. These standards include CIS Foundation benchmarks, PCI DSS version 3.2.1, and AWS Security Foundations. These security standards, once enabled, gives you a detailed check in terms of your resources, what has passed these security checks and what has failed. We additionally provide you information in terms of how to remediate these actions and automate these solutions where possible. So how do we take actions on findings from AWS Security Hub? As I mentioned, we gather data from downstream AWS services and third-party services, things like Amazon Guard Duty, Amazon Inspector and Macie, and some of the third-party solutions, for example, Splunk. Once this data has been pushed into AWS Security Hub, normalized and aggregated, we can use that from an Amazon CloudWatch events to be able to trigger specific actions. Things like a Lambda functions to auto-remediate a security group that has SSH open to the world, or running Amazon Systems Manager to do patch management on top of instances that are not patched, pushing these events into Slack or Microsoft Teams, or pushing that into service tools like Jira or ServiceNow for incident management and creation. The findings depends on your organizational policies and practices, and Amazon and AWS Security Hub gives you the ability to take these actions in an automated fashion. Now that we have a good view of what Amazon Detective and AWS Security Hub, let's talk a little bit about Amazon Detective and the value it brings to you as an organization. Amazon Detective makes it easy for you to analyze, investigate, and quickly identify the root cause of potential security issues or suspicious activity across your AWS account. Amazon Detective automatically collects log data from your AWS resources and uses machine learning, statistical analysis, and graph theory to build a link set of data that enables you to easily conduct faster and more efficient security investigations. We look into CloudTrail logs, VPC flow logs, and Amazon Guard Duty findings to give you that investigative capability. Amazon Detective is built on a graph database technology, which gives us the ability to plot data as we get more and more findings and more inputs from these logs. We are also able to link these findings that might seem disparate and find a commonality between these actions. A good example is the ability to link a user to a resource to a specific action. Combining that with enriched data like IP addresses, location, and geolocation, we as security professionals get that centralized view of related activities and how we can use that from an incident response scenario. Amazon Detective, as with other detection services in AWS, provide multi-account telemetry, enabling you to centralize your investigation. It's now a good time to mention, from a good practice perspective, it's good to consolidate your Amazon Guard Duty, AWS Security Hub, and Amazon Detective into a dedicated security account to simplify your process of detecting these findings, automatically remediating them, and investigating these incidents. Now that we have a good understanding of the services we introduced, we will dive into a demo that will showcase Amazon Detective, Amazon Guard Duty, and AWS Security Hub from a perspective of a security incident, how we're going to be able to detect these incidents, how we're going to be able to investigate them, and also show you how we can automatically remediate them.
I want to run this demo from the eyes of a security analyst. My starting point will always be Guard Duty. As we mentioned with the presentation, with Amazon Guard Duty, I have VPC flow logs, Route 53 logs, and CloudTrail logs integrated and the findings normalized. Getting the data from CloudTrail and CloudWatch requires a knowledge of what you're looking for. There will be cases where the adversary is performing functions outside of your AWS environment or using cross-account actions that are not easily visible without tools like Amazon Guard Duty. Before I start my investigation, let's look at what Amazon Guard Duty offers out of the box. If I go to the Usage tab, I'll be able to see a breakdown of my costs with CloudTrail, VPC flow logs, DNS logs, and S3 data events breakdown. I'll be also able to see the breakdown cost by account to be able to calculate my costs and project my future usage. If I go to Settings, Guard Duty creates a single Amazon Guard Duty detector. A detector is a resource that represents the Guard Duty service. To start using Guard Duty, you must create a detector in each region where you enable the service. You can have only one detector per account per region. You will also be able to see that I can export my findings to an S3 bucket for auditing or ingestion by third-party tools. Another great feature that we've enabled recently is the integration with AWS organizations. You can see that all my 8 accounts are managed centrally from my security bunker account. This is important as now I can manage my security posture organizational-wide. Guard Duty uses machine learning to understand normal versus unusual behavior in my account. This is powerful in determining baselines and showing the relevant alerts to my environment. You'll also be able to see that the auto enable feature is turned on. That means that any new account that's added as part of my AWS org will automatically have Guard Duty enabled and the findings centralized in my security account. Recently, we launched Guard Duty for S3, and from here you have the ability to enable this for the accounts and all the active accounts as part of your AWS organization to ensure that you have that level of protection associated with your S3 buckets organizational-wide. Guard Duty for S3 gives you the ability to determine read-write access, public access for your S3 buckets, credentials stored in S3, and have an overview of your S3 posture across your whole AWS organization. For the purposes of this demo, I prepared a filter that we will use for this investigation. Let's start with this filter, root credentials usage. If I click on that finding, you will be presented with a wealth of information. I'll be able to see the severity, and in this case it's low. Also a description of what the finding is. API, describe events aggregate, was invoked using root credentials from a specific IP address. The reason that this finding has been surfaced into Guard Duty is due to the fact that this action was performed by a root user. The severity is low, but the count was quite high. I can also see the account ID and the creation time. With every Guard Duty finding, you will see three different sections of information: the resource affected, action, and the actor. The resource affected details what the target is based on the finding, what credentials were used in the resource, and the resource type, and in this case the access key with the principal ID and the user root. If there's specific resource affected, it will be listed here as well. We will be able to see the actions, and in this case it was an API call targeting the health service to describe event aggregates. We will be able to see, from an actor perspective, additional information about the location and the ISP that was used. Now let's investigate this event using Amazon Detective. One thing you will notice is context switching from Guard Duty to Detective. If I click on Investigate, this will take me to Detective with all the context present. I'll be able to see the finding details from Guard Duty and all the level of details that we saw earlier within the Guard Duty console. The first thing I would like to draw your attention to is scope. One of the hardest things while investigating is keeping the context and time. If you lock this, this will apply across all the different contexts and clicks that you are performing while investigating. In this case, I will lock the scope for the month of April. Now, with every click throughout the console, this is the time period that I will be investigating and gives you additional information whether this time scope is aligned to your current finding. Now let's have a look at the additional details Amazon Guard Duty at Amazon Detective gives us. One of the most important things that you'll be able to see is associated findings with the current user, and in this case, root. So if there are any findings that have been surfaced that display the same behavior, location, user, or function, you'll be able to see them here. Due to the fact that we're using a graph database as the backend of the AWS Detective, we have the ability to easily plot graphs as we gather more data. In this case, you'll be able to see a list of the successful APIs and the numbers associated and whether there were any failures. Now let's have a look at new behavior and what that provides us. The first thing that you'll be able to see is newly observed geolocations. I can see that the user root has been invoked from multiple locations: the US, Netherlands, Hong Kong, Tokyo, and Australia. The size of the circle represents the number of the API calls or logins that occurred from that specific location. Now this highlights a higher security concern as the user root has been invoked from multiple locations. Now we can see the number of times that this has been observed by location, percentage of the total API calls, and how we receive these findings. You can also dive in deeper into a lot of the details here. Now this highlighted an additional information how the root account has been used. Now let's have a look at what API calls have been done as an aggregate from the different geolocations that we are seeing. I'll be able to see all the list and describe events and create events. Now if I filter on create, I will see that there were two API calls that were successful with create access key and create user. Now I have the ability to investigate further and find out what has been created. Now if I browse to IAM to see what users have been created, I will see that there was a user called adversary that was created in the same time period, April, that has the permissions administrative access applied to it. Now using Amazon Detective, I was easily able to identify the correlation between multiple events and determine the actions performed by the root user from a non-approved location from my organizational perspective that ended up creating additional resources in my AWS environment. Going back to Amazon Detective, I now have the ability to see an overview based on the AWS account and all the relevance finding associated with that account, successful and failed API calls, and additional details that I might need for my investigation. Another important factor to highlight is newly observed geolocations across the account rather than just the user. As you can see, there are multiple locations that were used to access my environment. Also, I'll be able to detail from here with the number of observed calls and the total number of API calls as well. And I have the ability to filter on the required APIs to continue my investigation. One thing I want to highlight as well is the info button. You'll be able to see this help button across all the different sections and tabs in Amazon Detective. The purpose of the info is to give the investigator additional information on what to ask. In some cases, you might be presented with findings that you're not very familiar with. So that gives you the ability to ask your application and development teams the right questions and have a full view in terms of what's happening across your environment. So this concludes our investigation for this specific finding. And as you can see, we were able to correlate additional events and were able to reach a root cause within a few minutes. One thing I want to highlight while using Amazon Detective is the ability to see usage. So again, you'll be able to see the projected usage across all your accounts if you have more than one account. From an account management perspective, I'll be able to invite members to my centralized security. This is a good point now to highlight that it's really good practice to consolidate AWS Security Hub, Amazon Detective, and Amazon Guard Duty to a centralized security AWS account for your security teams to be able to investigate, detect, and respond to security events across your entire AWS organization. Under General, you'll be able to see the master account integration, and under preferences, you also have the ability to modify the views.
Hopefully the demo was helpful in highlighting some of the aspects of how Amazon GuardDuty works and some of the benefits that you can use Amazon Detective to investigate these security incidents across your AWS accounts. We highlighted some of the features from a multi-account management and the ability to do correlation for you to be able to produce that root cause faster and quicker with more accurate information across your services. Since we discussed multiple services today, it's good to have a summary across some of these services and highlight some of the main use cases that you need to use these services for. First, we started talking about Amazon Detective, which is our centralized threat detection service that gives you the ability to monitor your AWS accounts using intel and identifying unusual patterns across your AWS services. It's great from a threat detection, security automation on scale, and managing your AWS environment across AWS organizations. Then we talked about AWS Security Hub, which is our aggregate AWS security services that gives you the ability to start and initiate compliance aspects and compliance standards from various AWS third-party sources as well, aggregate those findings to have a centralized view across your AWS security posture. It saves you time from this aggregation, improving your security posture, and taking actions on these events. Finally, we talked about Amazon Detective, which is an investigative service that helps you the ability to investigate security incidents and produce a root cause. It gives you the ability to faster and more effectively find that root cause, find that correlation across your findings, to be able to help you as a security professional identify these incidents and come up to a resolution faster. With that, I would really like to thank you for your time today. Hopefully this session was helpful and informative. Thank you very much.